Count the Dinosaurs is a counting book. You have the opportunity on the pages to set up little games of counting and identification with your child. So you sit on the couch and say, with their prompts, count how many yellow dinosaurs are there, and then they can count the yellow dinosaurs, or you can count them with them. And since there are so many dinosaurs on each page, you can make up your own games. And depending on kind of their level of interest in dinosaurs, you can tell which types of dinosaurs these are for the most part. Or, as children are wont to do, they can make them up and tell you which kinds of dinosaurs they are. A number of different ways to have fun with this book. I don't think it's great for if your child is actually learning how to read, because there are some grammar issues that will potentially disrupt the acquisition of correct grammar for them as they're developing, but otherwise perfect for counting, perfect for those types of interactive experiences around identifying and minor storytelling and things like that that you do when you're sitting on the couch looking at a picture book with your child. Today I Am Mad is a book by Michael Gordon, and it is illustrated by Max Larin. And there are a number of different stories throughout the book that you can read with your child. It has a rhyme scheme, so that is nice. It took me a minute to get into kind of the cadence, but you can get into it. And one of the things I liked about it is that it may give these scripts for kids to use, whether literally write the words that are used are the ones that they would use, but perhaps, but the experience of dealing with anger. This book kind of lays out patterns of how the interactions can go and result in outcomes that are desirable for you and for your children. So that's one of the things I liked about it. It's like kind of a demonstration of here's how the scene can play out. And so that gets into the mind and can be helpful, I think, probably to your children. Some of the other things that I liked were the sort of the implicit connecting of the intellectual life with the emotional life and the physical life. So what I mean by that is connecting for kids how words, an expression of saying that you're sorry, expressing forgiveness can change how people feel and can change, so right, the intellectual affects the emotional, and then how on the other side, how physical, right? So there's a hug, so that can reinforce or impact emotion as well. So right, it's connecting all of these different spheres of the human experience, and kind of knitting them together around a big emotion, anger, that kids feel. And seeing how you can short circuit, interrupt, or, and these are my words, not the author's, some of the negatives that can come from anger in terms of relationships and your own feelings and other people's feelings, all of that. So, and the drawings are fun to look at, and they do, they look like scenes that we've all seen play out with children. So there's some realism in the scenes that we see that Max Larin draws, um, and some real usefulness, I think, in how Michael Gordon lays these things out as potential scripts for ideal versions of how they could play out in the lives of our families. When the Sky Roars is a book by Katie Weaver, written by Katie Weaver and illustrated by her as well. Enjoyed the illustrations, lots of details that you can spend time with a child, looking at the different things. One of the things I noticed was that some of the elements from the child's bedroom carried over into some of the more fantastic scenarios that play out later in the story. So looking at little details and telling your own little stories within the story that that Katie is telling, that can be a fun thing, and the illustrations support that type of activity. There's also some very silly concepts that I think will make kids laugh, that you can play up as you're reading it in your dramatic parent reading of the story. And overall, the obviously addressing fear is part of it. When the sky roars, as the description says, that thunderstorms are not Liam's favorite thing. And so it's this journey of increasing understanding, with the hope that the effect that fear will be reduced to an appropriate level for the thing that is causing the fear. And I think that transcends, or at least extends beyond just thunderstorms, or as Katie puts it in the title, when the sky roars. So, a theme worth attending to, and she attends to it well. And I think it's a book that you can return to over and over again. It's got a rhyme scheme that is pleasant, and I think at a certain point in your child's development, they'll enjoy reading it out loud, and so will you. Grandpa Mudcake and the Crazy Haircut is written and illustrated by Sophia J. Ferguson. This is a funny story that I think has some elements that will inspire children to want to read it again. Some of the dialogue is fun and playful with language, and the characters are clearly presented, so easily understood, but not necessarily, as a result of that, not necessarily boring by any means. You can easily have expectations about what's going to play out, which, of course, right, if you've got expectations connected to clear expectations connected to clearly presented characters, you can set up expectations that then Sophia J. Ferguson will work with to create humor. And I think there are some funny parts of this based on classic classic and common forms of humor. So your kids will have an opportunity to learn that. Humor through misunderstanding, for instance. And then also there's an element of dealing with conflict and unexpected outcomes in what I think is a sweet pleasant and sort of Grandpa Mudcakey kind of a way. So, a fun book, and I think kids are going to want to read it more than once. Curse of the Furies is a chapter book by Meadoe Hora, and it is a story that incorporates significantly incorporates elements of Greek mythology, and I think does so in a way that creates these little opportunities every few chapters for you to jump off and delve into that Greek mythology if that is of interest to you, right? There are these nice hooks for, or what I should say, just be clear about it, these references that are clear enough that you can easily go, if you're reading this book on your own, you could go and read, meaning like if your child was reading this on their own, could go and do some searching and get interested and do some investigating into Greek mythology that would be interesting to them. There's enough there to do a search. And it's also relevant to, Meadoe makes it relevant to the characters, those stories that there are those jumping off points to go research or to go investigate and experience. They are relevant to who the characters show up as in this story. And I think that's right. That is a one example of how Meadoe creates in her writing some consistent experiences, which I think is has both an aesthetic and a technical value. There are some other areas where this kind of consistency shows up in the book as well. So there are some themes also that I think will be of relevance to the audience for this book, and that, we've got a character who has within them this sort of secret nature, this secret potential, which is both frightening and isolating. And so there's a desire, having that as a part of the character, there's a desire for normalcy and a fear also of not being quote unquote normal. But then there's also the feeling of being called to something bigger, something different, and a desire / fear of, or hesitancy about becoming your own version of yourself, right? Because there's also this set of expectations, right? Expectations around normalness, expectations upon this character's shoulders, Aaron, expectations around being normal, and what that means, expectations around taking on the Furious legacy, as it's described by Meadoe. And there's a feeling, and so there's an experience inside of her that she's trying to sort out and understand so that she can become her version of her own self. And so there's that internal struggle that gets played out in her relationships, and I think that that is consistent with experiences that people have at various points in their lives, and useful to read through that in kind of this exciting, heightened mythologically infused type of setting. So fun on that front. There's some fun that's brought in as a result of the legendary mythological side of things to what is, I think, a very human experience at various points in people's lives. So one of the other things that I liked is that the author attended to the details of, or the author attends to the details of certain vignettes of life, right? So let's see if I can think of one. So there's this experience, there's a relationship between, for instance, Wisconsin and Chicago that the character experiences, which for Chicago and Wisconsin is well known. And the descriptions of being at a music venue are in tune with the experience of music venues. The description, so for instance, in being Chicago, the things that you eat and that you smell, those were descriptive, and they were connected and made sense with being in Chicago. So I guess what I'm saying is there's a thoughtfulness and attention to the actual visceral experience of these unique environments that I think points to, well, first of all, it creates a nice little experience, right? That, or creates a more authentic visceral experience of these places for the reader. So that draws you into the story in a nice way. And yeah, it also reinforces, as a reader, your faith in the world that you're experiencing, so that your suspension of disbelief, or however you want to put that, is being rewarded by consistency and authenticity within the story. So, and there's plenty of drama and secret revelations and portentous conversations, secrets revealed and unearthed, intentionally, unintentionally, motives that kind of unfold over a series of experiences between characters. You can't, you think it's revealed, then it gets revealed again, those types of things. And that's it's fun to read. Thank you to our authors and illustrators. And you can find links to their work in the description below, as well as links to mine. Thank you.